The fifth major setback was the Jiangxi predicament. Zeng Guofan, having performed well in Hunan, was ordered by the emperor to support Jiangxi. However, he faced similar issues there. The local officials prioritized those who could recommend their promotion. Upon arriving in Jiangxi, Zeng Guofan encountered Chen Qimai, the governor there. Chen was incompetent and inconsistent, constantly issuing contradictory orders. One moment he would order troops to Jingdezhen, and before they got halfway, he would change the orders to go back to Nanchang and then somewhere else, causing confusion among the troops. Unable to tolerate this, Zeng Guofan eventually reported Chen to the emperor. Although Zeng Guofan had little power locally, his only authority was to write directly to the emperor. His report led to Chen's removal. This action, however, made Zeng Guofan many enemies among the local officials. Locals found Zeng Guofan difficult to get along with, and he was widely disliked. At that time, Zeng Guofan said, "I am constantly being mistreated, and everyone is playing me like a fool." He felt powerless and described his distress with the phrase, "tears swelling the river," meaning his sadness was so great it seemed to overflow like a river. The situation was unbearable. Because the emperor did not trust him fully. The emperor feared that such a powerful military force might rebel in the future, especially since Zeng Guofan was Han Chinese. The emperor frequently assigned Zeng Guofan to the toughest parts of the Taiping campaign, hoping to wear him down. The strategy was to exhaust his forces so that the final victory could be claimed by the Manchu troops. Consequently, while the Manchus eventually defeated the Taiping, Zeng Guofan's forces were gradually depleted. This created immense pressure from above, while from below, officials refused to cooperate. During this period, Zeng Guofan's father passed away, and he should observe a mourning period. He requested the emperor's permission to return home for 3 years of mourning. Feeling disheartened, Zeng Guofan went home, but was confident in making this request because he knew his military capability was crucial and no one else could replace him. The emperor responded by urging him to return to duty immediately, saying the current military situation was too critical for him to take a break. At this point, Zeng Guofan revealed his intention and stated that if he were to return to duty, he needed a substantial official position, such as a governor, to effectively manage the situation. He made this request explicitly in his letter, explaining that his current position was too awkward to be effective. As it happened, the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom began to falter and eventually split, leading to internal conflict. Seeing this development, the emperor decided that Zeng Guofan's presence was no longer essential and granted him the requested 3-year break. The blow was devastating for Zeng Guofan. He lost his composure to such an extent that he began to lash out at everyone around him, including his sister-in-law. His temper became extremely irritable, and he suffered from various health issues, including insomnia. His mood was so volatile that everyone avoided him, demonstrating just how unbalanced he had become. However, Zeng Guofan did one right thing. Amid his immense suffering and stress, he turned to the works of Laozi and Zhuangzi for solace. In ancient China, scholars often read the Confucian classics when things were going smoothly and turned to Taoist texts in times of struggle. After reading these works, Zeng Guofan experienced a profound realization. In his diary, he wrote that he had been too arrogant and impatient, relying solely on brute strength and stubbornness. He recognized that many of the conflicts he faced were related to his own approach to work, not necessarily because all the officials he encountered were bad. Laozi's teachings were particularly helpful to him. For instance, Laozi spoke of the softness dominates the hardest. The sea and rivers become kings of all the streams because they are good at accepting, and great softness is not soft, ultimate hardness is not hard. Zeng Guofan aspired to achieve the state of blending with the light and dust, as Laozi described, being subtle and adaptable, blending with the light and dust, dulling its sharpness, and resolving its conflicts. He realized that he had been too aggressive, and that Laozi's analogy about a long needle piercing through a sack but eventually breaking was a valuable lesson. Sharpness, he learned, cannot be sustained for long. However, if you can be smooth and subtle, blending seamlessly with your surroundings, such that no one notices you as exceptional, then your cultivation is truly complete. If people always see you as exceptional wherever you go, then your level of cultivation isn't high enough. Thus, achieving the state of blending with the light and dust is essential. Zeng Guofan spent these 2 years in deep contemplation of Laozi and Zhuangzi's teachings. He referred to these 2 years as his period of profound repentance and enlightenment. During his 3-year mourning period, he took 2 years to reflect and wrote, "In the past, I was overly confident in my abilities, believing I could adapt and handle everything, yet I always saw others as lacking. Since my repentance and enlightenment during the 2 years, I realized I had no real talent, and that others had some merit." These 2 years marked a turning point for Zeng Guofan. In cinematic terms, this period would be the turning point scene where Zeng Guofan realized that success isn't achieved by offending everyone, but by understanding a more nuanced approach to work. Then, the Taiping army re-emerged, and the emperor was caught off guard. He quickly summoned Zeng Guofan back into action. In the 8th year of Xianfeng, the Taiping forces had captured 2 major camps in Jiangnan and Jiangbei. At this time, Zeng Guofan returned to the fray, and everyone noticed a significant change in him. The first major change was his demeanor. Zeng Guofan became courteous, humble, and considerate toward everyone. When he was an official in Beijing, he frequently argued, even with close friends, and his diary reflects his explosive temper. Their argument would escalate into fight. Suddenly, he became extremely amiable and attentive to others' feelings. As a result, people started saying that Li Hongzhang was someone you couldn't deceive due to his intelligence, and Zuo Zongtang was someone you would not dare to deceive because of his fierce temperament. But Zeng Guofan was described as someone you couldn't be hard-hearted to deceive, due to his kindness. This marked a dramatic transformation in his character after he turned 40. The second major change was his approach to dealing with the emperor. Previously, Zeng Guofan wrote straightforward memorials to the emperor, directly stating his unwillingness to comply with orders and threatening to resign if his demands were not met. Now, he began to employ a more evasive strategy. When the emperor assigned him to Sichuan, Zeng Guofan realized it would be a death sentence due to the difficult terrain and strong opposition. Instead of refusing outright, he promised to go immediately and repeatedly claimed he was on his way. Meanwhile, he kept reporting new issues that made it impossible to leave, thus dragging his feet until he was eventually unable to go. The third major change was his approach to recommending officials, which he called excessive nominations. In the past, after a significant victory, such as capturing a large city like Wuhan, Zeng Guofan would only recommend a few individuals, less than 3% of his subordinates. In contrast, his friend and former subordinate Hu Linyi recommended around 3,000 people, which was about 20–30% of his subordinates, all of whom received promotions and rewards. This led people to believe that they wouldn't gain any benefit by working with Zeng Guofan. Realizing this, Zeng Guofan decided to adopt a more generous approach to nominations, even advising his brother to be liberal with promotions. He even suggested promoting someone who had never held an official position to a county magistrate, as a means of integrating into the bureaucratic culture and smoothing out his own sharp edges. The fourth change was his approach to military discipline, balancing leniency with strictness. Previously, Zeng Guofan was very strict, constantly preaching morals and military discipline to his troops. However, after capturing Nanjing, he allowed a period of leniency where his soldiers could loot the city, keeping the spoils for themselves. His reasoning was that they fought for their survival. Zeng Guofan did not turn over the loot to the court, arguing with his brother that sending the spoils to the emperor was unreasonable and would demoralize the troops. To comfort himself, he used the phrase, "to show compassion for their poverty and reward their achievements." After the difficulties in Jiangxi, until his return after 2 years of mourning, Zeng Guofan had completely transformed. At this point, he could be described with a term from the book, Cunning and Shrewd Zeng Guofan. He wrote in his letters that an important strategy in governance was the expansion method. The expansion method means to delay whenever possible. This was Zeng Guofan's approach to handling affairs. To us, it might seem that Zeng Guofan had become someone without principles. However, Zeng Guofan did have his own bottom lines. His actions were driven by the core goal of getting things done. For example, Prince Chen Yixuan held a high position, and was even threatening the emperor's authority at the time. Prince Chun sought to build relationships with ministers and repeatedly asked to meet Zeng Guofan. Zeng Guofan consistently refused, maintaining his principle of not engaging with factions. This was a matter of principle for him. One of his secretaries, reflecting on Zeng Guofan's life, wrote a poignant remark. He said that Zeng Guofan spent about 20–30% of his effort on fighting battles, and 50–60% on dealing with the complexities of officialdom and bureaucratic issues. This truly highlights the difficulty of gaining his achievements. There is a passage where Zeng Guofan encouraged his brother, saying, "My progress in life comes from enduring setbacks and humiliation. One must grit their teeth and stay determined, building up their energy and wisdom, and never give up on oneself. Every task has its extremely difficult times. Those who can overcome them are true heroes."